we do have a tight schedule. I would like to introduce to you one of our sponsors. These events happen in great part because our sponsors help us bring this type of event forward to you. Today is Cassandra Carver. She is with Astron Solutions. Astron is our compensation partner out of New York, and she can tell you real quickly a little bit about their organization in case you need any help in the space of compensation. Cassandra.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Cassandra Carver. I work at Astron Solutions. We're a compensation consulting firm that's been in the business for about 25 years, coming this January. We've been excited to partner with AIM for about 8 years of that 25, going on 25 years. And we look forward to this new expansion of AIM and working with most of you guys as you need help developing compensation programs that allows you to stay competitive in your field, but also make sense internally. You know, in this time of inflation and pay transparency is a scary place, but we're excited to help you guys and make it more confident for you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Cassandra. And Astron Solutions does a wonderful job helping all of our members. And should you need the help, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at AIM, and we'll help put you in contact with them. All right, our next speaker is Ryan Kohler. Ryan is becoming very much a leader in the space of Chat GPT. And I'd like to just read his bio. I think it's a great bio. It tells us a little bit about who he is. He's been a wonderful partner to AIM first, let me say that. So Ryan is a visionary entrepreneur behind Applicant Pro, Refer.io, and the driving force behind GPT for Work. With a remarkable track record of success in the hiring and recruiting industry, Ryan founded and led Applicant Pro to serve nearly 10,000 organizations since its inception in 2006. As founder of GPT for Work, Ryan combines his expertise in HR practices with his unwavering enthusiasm for AI's potential. His dedication to eliminating the path towards optimizing hiring processes, evaluating employee engagement, and facilitating data-driven decision-making for organizations looking to secure their future success. Ryan's mission extends beyond his own accomplishments. He is deeply passionate about empowering HR professionals and business owners to replicate his hiring success. Through his teaching and guidance, he's demonstrated with an open mind and strategic ability, they too can realize hiring goals and drive transformation outcomes. This is the second time we've had Ryan as our guest speaker at a Wayfinder Summit. Ryan, please join us on stage. Thank you.
So these guys were worried that I wouldn't show some of the cool AI stuff, and so it actually started talking while she was up here doing her little thing. So this morning, I actually got fired up because somebody commented on a LinkedIn post that I made. You gotta hear it. It's wonderful. And like I did respond. In constraint or restraint is one of my superpowers. You know, Sarah, best restraint person ever. Yeah. But it was, somebody was complaining about layoffs, and they said, we have enough innovation right now, we should just stop innovating. Because it just leaves people losing their jobs. And so, while a lot of you guys were in here taking notes about last presentation, who in here took notes? Okay. So I actually took my phone, and I dropped it on the table over there with this fancy little mic in it. I actually transcribed his entire presentation while he was talking. And then we're going to hear, I'll give you the update that you can take back to your people. I had Snoop Dogg deepfake his review of it. But you guys got to turn up on the speakers.
Yo, what's cracking, man? It's the DOWG, the 411 on that legal update. Direction and regulation. Man, the way these regs are moving, it's like watching the tides change. Some of these agencies be stepping up their game, trying to lay down the law. We got to keep our eyes peeled and stay woke. Most active agencies, some of these agencies be acting like they're trying to too much gin and juice always in the minute. But it's all good. It keeps us on our toes, you feel me? Business navigation. Businesses out here gotta move smooth, like how I flow on the beat. It ain't always easy with all these rules, but if you play it smart, you can still shine. Challenges.
So I literally made that walking up to stage. Deepfake, yeah, so Snoop Dogg's voice wasn't. My 15-year-old deepfaked it from, I think, like 10 YouTube videos. I could actually switch that if you wanted and instead do it as James Earl Jones or anything like that. So a couple things that we get into Chat GPT. It's not your lawyer. Just so everybody hears that. This, like, I inhaled his entire presentation, and if I was doing something with it, you can actually see it here on the screen. What would I do with something like this? Well, I would ask it, I'm a tech company with 280 employees. What should I talk to my lawyer about? So as we jump into this, just keep this in mind. If you don't have the ability to know whether what it comes back with is right or wrong, it means you should still talk to a lawyer. You got that? If you can't read the output and say this is right or wrong, and it matters. Now, if it doesn't matter, like me getting up on stage and having Snoop Dogg tell you what he was talking about, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to get sued over that. That's a good use of ChatGPT. Going in here and saying, I'm going to save myself $300 an hour, I'm just going to have it tell me what we should do and if we're safe, probably not a good use. But this right here of, hey, here's a whole bunch of stuff from his presentation I should go talk to him about. That's a good use of it. Give me all the notes. If you're in a meeting, if you're taking notes in a meeting right now, you're insane. Like while we were here, here's my Otter. So Otter.ai, one of my most used apps. I use it on my phone all the time. I use it. It will actually sign into my Zoom and take live transcription notes that I can copy and paste into ChatGPT. No matter how good you are at taking notes, you're not going to beat a transcription. You're just not. And so as we jump into kind of ChatGPT and how to use it, just keep that in mind. Like, there are so many things you can do if you're willing to go play with the technology. And so as we start, there's a little QR code right here if you could, just to get us started. If you'll scan that with your phone. So this, I always I'm a contrarian, which means if somebody says there's a rule, I'm the one who's going to break it. So when I'm unsure, I like to, almost every introduction, we actually did do it in this one, is please silence your phones and put them away. Don't use them during the presentation. And then 5 minutes in, you're holding your phone over your head, taking pictures of the slides. I tend to be the opposite. I want you to use your phone while we're going through this. And so it's going to, if you scan the QR code, it'll take you, or you can go to the URL, because we're going to use this to kind of gather some information. But I figured, as part of my intro, I'd give you a little idea about me. Here's all you need to know to sum up kind of my core thing. This year so far, I've sent 1 billion emails with a B. One at a time. 1 billion emails. Just in the last 30 days, I actually tuned it down. I think in August, we dropped 120 million emails out. My overage charge in emails was $8,000 in overage charges, because it's still charged kind of like your cell phone plan used to be. I used to get 300 minutes. And if you went 301 minutes, you're like, Mom, this phone call's costing me 50 cents a minute. I need to hang up. So that right there, so you can see this, and this actually, if you want to see this slide, if you do presentations for your team, culture presentations or anything, AHA Slides is the way to go. I can show you how it works, but you're going to see us use it throughout in order to kind of create some interaction here as we go. But let's start with the questions to make sure this is working. Where do you fit in your family? So it's super interesting. I got remarried. This is my second. She is a only child, and I am a baby. So if you can imagine, there's interesting dynamics that happen when you're the only child. Everything is all about me, and when you're the baby, everything should be all about me. That creates interesting back and forth. And I think I've asked this question 4 or 5 times. HR people tend to lean heavily in the first child side of things. I think it's hey, I want a job where I get to tell everybody what to do. It's my job to keep you guys in line. Us tech entrepreneurs, we're going to be on the low side. I got technology you didn't get. That was my fault. I was born last. And so as you kind of look at this, you'll see like that interaction, that ability of saying, okay, this is interesting. I have a crowd of people who are first children, not very many middle childs. I don't think a lot of middle children are attracted to HR. It's just not, I don't know, it's not, although they'd be great work for the lawyer. If you had an HR person who was a middle child, can you imagine the amount of, yeah, the law said that, but we're gonna do the opposite because I'm sick of this. And so, right here are questions we dive in because I want to make sure that you'll see I'll ask a handful of questions throughout this just so I can pattern when we jump into Chat GPT. How do you feel about hiring right now? This is a new one I haven't tried before, so we're going to see. I think it should be a word cloud. So it's funny, in my feed on LinkedIn, all I hear about are layoffs and job seekers that say they can't find a job. And yet, in the real world, middle America or not in tech, the real world, I don't think it's actually, there's that many layoffs. We're actually, the economy's still growing. Here we go, stressed, tired, excited, defeated. It's hard, it's crazy. Like, there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on when it comes to hiring. And I think LinkedIn is actually feeding it right now. I don't know what your feed looks like, but my feed looks like the world is ending in tech and that no job seeker can get a job. I don't actually think that's real. I think it's just, I don't know, I guess if you own a job board and also own the ability to adjust your algorithm to drive what's going on, you might have a motivation to create some friction around hiring, like that it sucks and it's broken or that it's hard. And so it's an interesting thing as LinkedIn is kind of evolving, more job board, less network. But as we get into this, just so that like my story about Applicant Pro, super interesting. Who in here uses AimTrack? So AimTrack is also Applicant Pro. iSolve Hire, Applicant Pool, Applicant List, those are all running my platform. About 17 years ago, somebody asked me to build an applicant tracking system, and being that I'm not a programmer, but I call her a pocket programmer. She was there in my pocket. When I had a full-time job, if I had to do something in Excel, I called my programmer. Actually, I chatted, and I was like, hey, will you build something so I don't have to do this? And so we said, yeah, we could probably build an applicant tracking system. How hard could it be? I've never seen one. That was 17 years ago. About, I think, 100,000 leads ago, we probably onboarded and offboarded, because clients leave, maybe 20, 25,000 companies. Written, I don't know how many job ads. I left Applicant Pro about a year ago, right? 12 months. 11 years in a row on the Inc. 5000 list, we bootstrapped. Everybody know what bootstrapping means? It means I took $2,000 a month out of my pocket for 2 years to fund the company and never took anybody else's money. And we grew to almost 300 employees. But the stats on the right-hand side, something to keep in mind. When I left, we were turning away 20 referrals per hire. Not applicants, referrals. We were generating 450 applicants per hire. My Indeed budget is zero. I spend no money on paid job boards. Not because my HR person doesn't want to, but because when you work for me, you have to be the example of we do it the hardest way possible to prove a point. And the point we were proving was we could just rewrite our own job ads to get out of that. That top number is probably something, who in here knows how many job followers they have? How many people get their job alerts on a monthly basis? Who in here even thinks about job followers? That 1 billion emails are job alerts to people who follow one of my 10,000 employer clients. I just keep basically thinking about every time you hire somebody, you throw away 50 applicants. Every time you hire somebody, maybe 5,000 people viewed that job. It's actually one of the questions that I think most people don't recognize. When we say, hey, we're having a hard time getting applicants, we only get 100 or so. We think that maybe we're seeing half of the available applicants. You're seeing less than 1% of the people who search for that type of job on Indeed. Less than 1%. So if you're saying, hey, we don't get enough applicants for our jobs, but I think it's just the way it is, you're wrong. Literally, you're seeing 1 out of 100 people you could see. That's it, just 1 out of 100. And so, as we get into this presentation, why would you use ChatGPT? I can tell you one of the main reasons is because It's your own fault you're seeing so few applicants. Your content, it's the same way, if my marketing person came to me and said, we just don't get enough leads, and said, I just don't think there's that many HR people out there looking for software, I would fire them. And the reason I'd fire them isn't because they aren't right and it's hard to get leads. It's that if they didn't fix it, we would go out of business. Because we need leads to stay in business. And so this will just give us, a little bit of this right here, super interesting, heavy sub 100, right? Those are the businesses that don't have money compared to their competitors. And raise the hands actually, we'll go non-tech here. Who feels like that's them? Our competitors have more money than us, better brand recognition, better pay, better benefits, right? We're the David, they're the Goliath. If that's the case, then using money to compete for talent is never going to work. Ever. You just don't have enough of it. If you have $100, they have $10,000. No matter how much you raise pay, no matter how much you increase your spending on Indeed, it's never going to work. Period. It doesn't mean that you can't compete. It just means you can't compete on money. So last question I'll ask, and then we'll jump into the slides here. What industry do you work in? So I left this one open because I didn't want to pigeonhole you. You can throw a couple words in there. You might put restaurants or hospitality. Clearly I work in the tech space. There we go. So the cool thing about this type of thing is it gives me the information I need to now kind of adjust our presentation. And today we're going to talk about Chat GPT, which is probably about one of the most transformative pieces of technology since, email. Let me state that again. Think about how much your job has changed because of email. Think about, most of us are old enough to remember when email first was coming out. Do you remember all the people that are like, who would do that? Why wouldn't you just send a letter? I mean, how are you going to have proof that you sent it if you sent an email? That's just for those kids who are talking about weird stuff. That's not for normal stuff. I mean, I would never email in a resume. I would send a physical copy. There's something tangible about holding it. On the flip side, how many people remember how much hate was going on about, what about all the male characters? They'll be out, carriers, they'll be out of business. They won't have jobs anymore. I guess they're all just going to be unemployed. How many people think that we have fewer mail carriers and package deliverers today than we had then? We're getting way less junk mail, but we're getting a ton of just like boxes from Amazon showing up on our porch. Like crazy amount. Like we just got married, which means somebody built their registry on Amazon. What? Constant flow of boxes from Amazon on the front porch, right? We're literally destroying the environment just in cardboard boxes. Like so much of it. But think about how much negativity there was when email came out about how this was going to destroy these jobs, these people's work. Why can't we just stick with what we were doing? Paper was working just fine. I mean, the fax machine, totally, who still gets faxes? I mean, at least that's gone, right? Somebody's raising, the lawyers, auto dealers. I believe you can still market auto dealers with fax machines, because auto dealers are like the only place where you can still find the little edges on the paper that you pull off. They're still running those little printers that have the paper things, right? And so as we get into this, I would just start with this one thing. Because of, if we go back to fear and stress and all those things we feel about hiring, your confidence to run your company as a boss, your confidence as a manager to have hard conversations with people, comes down to this one core thing. How good is your talent engine? If you don't believe that you can find somebody to replace the person who just showed up an hour late to work, you're going to continue to put up with that person showing up an hour late to work. And while that seems like a harsh thing to say, the rest of the employees who didn't show up an hour late to work are the ones that are going to quit and leave to go work somewhere else. When that is probably the hardest thing over the years of, at 300 employees, I think I probably hired maybe 500 people individually. That's not like, for me, hiring somebody isn't It isn't just a, hey, we went through the process and hired them. I'm literally taking on their family when I hire them. Like COVID starts and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got like 150 families to think about. That's not for nothing, it's not just a money thing. I literally had 150 families that I thought about going into COVID going, oh shit, like people aren't hiring. So I run a hiring company and we were at 150 and it was, yeah, so just as you think about this kind of thing, I know that if I need to grow or if something happens, if somebody quits, I think I like this part of it. I need to be able to be preferably indifferent to somebody continuing to work with me. I would prefer that my best employees stay. I would not ask my best employees to stay at their detriment. There's probably a lot better places to work based off of where they're at today. Maybe a programmer wants to work on mobile technology and we don't do that. Or maybe somebody got a job with somebody who makes way more money per client than I make and could make more money. And it's not my job to say, no, you should sacrifice to stay working for me. I need to be able to be happy about that. Who in here is happy when one of your best employees quit? It sucks, right? But the reason we're not happy is because we're not confident in our ability to find somebody like them to go in that spot. Yeah, it's still gonna be hard in the gap. We're gonna have to train a new person or whatever. But the I can't find anybody, we're screwed kind of feel, right? Is what leads us to not feeling great about it. So we're gonna jump into Chat GPT here, and if you, I guess, have had your head in the sand, you wouldn't know what it is or that it exists. But if you read the news about it, you're gonna get two types of news. You're gonna get, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Our world is going to completely change in the future, and you're going to get all is lost. This is going to destroy humanity. There's actually a reason why this is. It's called the hype cycle. And if you haven't, most people haven't heard of hype cycle unless you're in the tech world. This isn't something that we can legislate out of. This isn't something that we can get rid of. This is actually like gravity. It just is a circle of life in the tech world. We have this hype cycle. Here's how it works. When somebody comes up with new technology, they're probably in a lab somewhere. They're a little scientific nerd, right? That lab might be in a school lab. It might be in their mom's basement. It could be literally anywhere. But some really smart, creative person comes up with new technology, and they figure out a way to get it to work. And at that point, they're going to need two things. They're going to need money, and they're going to need help. And in order to get money on something that has zero guarantee of success, just think about that. Who in here has gone and raised $1 million from somebody with zero guarantee and no payback? I have. It's scary stuff. Who would give you $1 million and not expect to get it back? Like, yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get back $10 million, but also if it goes to zero, you know, it's just the way life goes. What kind of hype would I have to create to get somebody to give me $1 million with no guarantee and no asset that they can repossess and literally nothing? That's a lot of hype. How much hype do I have to create to get $100 million? Or $500 million in venture capital? I've got to promise them that it's going to change the total world. Now the flip side, how much hype do I have to create to get a really experienced programmer who makes $500,000 a year at Google to quit their job and come work for me as somebody with 10 employees and zero benefits? I'm going to have to tell them that they're going to take us to Mars. Just think about that for a minute. The problem with most of working America is they think all that hype is a promise. It will do this. When Elon came out and said that my Cybertruck was going to be here like a year ago, I knew that that was just partially hype. It wasn't a promise, it was a projection with some hope going. Now what happens at the top of this is everybody jumps in and starts using this new technology and they're like, well, autopilot didn't do what he said it would do. It rear-ended somebody randomly on Wednesday. It hit, like a construction barrel while I was letting it drive for me, right? If that might have happened. I didn't instantly sell my Tesla. I looked at it and went, well, somebody somewhere is collecting that data. Hopefully next time it won't hit the construction barrel. But we get this disillusionment as we then try and go, well, a lawyer used it and it had cited cases that didn't exist. Well, yeah, it's brand new technology. What did you expect? But this disillusionment of, well, somebody used it to try to end the world. Ryan used it to deepfake Snoop Dogg's voice and I didn't pay him any money. Oh my gosh, that's going to destroy Snoop Dogg's ability to make money, right? This is a normal cycle. It happens in every new technology, right? We roll out ATMs. The ATM manufacturer and vendor has to say, I see a day in the near future where there will be no bank tellers. That's the promise they have to make to raise money and get a good team. But yet, last week I went and talked to a bank teller. They still exist after 2 decades of ATMs, right? They're still there. They didn't go away. There might be fewer of them. Hopefully, the job they're doing is less just giving me money and doing more complicated things. But that's what we have to look at is this is probably the most important piece of advice on anything. When somebody expresses an opinion about something, no matter how confident and how, as a matter of fact, this is the truth, where are they coming from? Are they on the most gain, the hope side? They're running an AI startup, well then clearly this is going to replace all recruiters tomorrow. Right? Think about it. Who's heard that? AI is going to replace all recruiters, we just won't need you anymore. You've heard it if you went to HR Tech, because tech guys building AI recruiters need to say that. Because if I don't say it and they're like, no, it's just going to make recruiters like 20% more effective, nobody's going to give them money. I'm sorry, they're just not. Now on the flip side, the most to lose. If you're a journalist right now, you're going to write articles about how shitty AI is, right? If you're a lawyer, you might say, hey, this won't do what I do. If you're somebody who makes money based off of your unique knowledge, you may not want to be replaced by AI. There's a good chance your opinion about AI will be negative, which isn't actually lawyers. It's actually journalists and teachers and educators. Look at that and say, this is cheating. This is wrong. I actually want my kid here to learn how to produce his own thought. And AI is going to be a way for him to cheat. Everybody heard that? Until you get to business. So here's my question. Who in here has written a job description from scratch? You literally open up Word and started in the beginning there was a receptionist. This is what her job will be. Anybody done that? Or did you use a template that you got from SHRM and adjust it? Because if you used a template, then you're a plagiarist. Are you not? Didn't you copy somebody's work and adjust it? That's the definition of plagiarism in college. If you were writing a book and did that, you would be a plagiarist. But in the business world, we actually are all plagiarists. You would be an idiot to start from zero instead of using the best practice and adjusting it. And so as you think about this part of AI, our goal is to run this like Goldilocks, right? We want it just right. We don't want to listen to all the hype because it might waste our time and money. We also don't want to listen to all the hate, or we'll end up 5 years from now not even knowing how ChatGPT works. We want to be in the middle. We want to proactively and kind of iterate our way through this by picking the smart things to do and making as few dumb mistakes as possible. So we're going to jump into ChatGPT because there's a chance, but I want to know what comes to mind. I've got 2 questions here. What comes to mind and how much have you used it? So you can get out your mobile device again. Because, I mean, I know Sarah's been using hers all the time. I haven't touched my mobile device in like 5 minutes. I'm starting to get like a little bit of like a little itchy for it. So, what comes to mind when I say ChatGPT at work? I'm hoping it's the opposite of what came to mind when it was talking about hiring. Like hope and change, but most likely it makes work easier. Scared. Oh my gosh, this is going to replace me. Oh, what if I don't have a job afterwards? Interesting. Efficiency being a good one. Insincere is great. Insincere because it's a robot writing content, right? Not authentic. Anti-creative. Just think about all of this stuff. This is what we're hearing about. I'm going to ask a question in a minute here about your usage of ChatGPT, and I want you to keep in mind, most likely, what percentage of this comes from us actually actually using it, and what percentage of this comes from what we've heard or we're guessing about. We're saying, well, this is what I heard. Somebody told me that. I read the news about it. I heard somebody tried to end the world with Chat GPT, or I heard somebody tried to, whatever the case may be. So we can kind of see this. It's amazing. Think about how dynamically opposed our opinions are about this topic. They're not in the middle, like, I hear it's pretty good, or it might be a little bad. They are, I'm afraid of it, or it might be the most amazing thing ever. That has to be a really good sign of something. Think about all the different innovations you've ever heard of. The really cool ones, we have this very broad thing. If I say Tesla, everybody has an opinion, right? For good or for bad, everybody's got an opinion. Who in here doesn't have an opinion about Tesla electric cars and self-driving? Like literally no opinion. We have an opinion, right? Who in here has driven the Tesla? Raise your hand. For those, no, raise it really high. Because there's like 4 of us. Everybody has an opinion. 4 of us have actually driven. What does that say about like how we decide and make decisions about what we think about things? If 4 of us have driven one. So, I want you to be honest here. This is, for the most part, like nobody here can see your answers. Clearly, I'm a tech guy, so I will see your answer at the end of the day. I promise not to bash you because I believe what the lawyer said was, your comfort with technology is like something I can't give you shit about. I think that's what slide number 7 or 8 said. So I now have to like be careful about how I give people a hard time about their use of technology. So think about this right here. 7 people have used it for work. Now that is a really broad, like used it for work, like logged in and said, rewrite this job description. I'm guessing your used it at work and mine used it at work are 2 very different things, right? Advanced, every day, every week. But look at this, I've never used it. I've messed around with it. But we have strong opinions about it. Interesting, right? As we start to look at ChatGPT use in the workplace, the very first thing that we think about is we gotta have a policy for this. Who's gonna write the policy? Who's gonna enforce the policy? If we haven't actually used it, what would go in that policy? Don't use it, I hear it's scary. When in doubt, just don't do it. Like, you shouldn't log into the internet, because there's a bunch of weird stuff out there. Just don't log into it. I think our policy should be we just don't log into the internet. Because there's some scary stuff, right? And so as we look at this, just to point out, the only way you're going to be comfortable with new technology is using it. I'm probably 200,000 miles on autopilot right now. I trust autopilot over all of your kids for sure driving. But most likely most of you, and definitely I trust it way more than me. I would trust me being asleep at the wheel with autopilot on to me being wide awake at the wheel of my Jeep all day long. It's way better. I mean, like, 1 million checks a second on like 7 different cameras and 4 radars, and I can barely pay attention like when I'm driving and my phone's not in the car. This is like, what am I thinking about right now? Not driving. So, as we get into this, there has to be a better way than trial and error. And so this is where most organizations struggle, is if you don't have a policy saying don't use it, which is where a lot go to, we think AI, we get our tech guy. We're like, hey tech guy, what should we do with AI? And he's like, shut it down. I'll just lock it at the firewall level. Who in here has that? Like, we can't log into ChatGPT, it's blocked. Wow, not very many. That's interesting because most HR people or others I talk to where you do block it, they're like, no, I have to go home on my home network. Oh, I have to get off the Wi-Fi, log into my hotspot, and I'll use ChatGPT there. You're not going to stop that, right? And so today this is my goal. Can we start with it? The first step. You don't need a policy, or more specific, the policy needs to be more of a framework. AI is changing like literally every week. So if something is changing that rapidly, you can't create a policy that fixes everything. So instead, this is kind of the framework. Here's what's not allowed. So I have some simple stuff on that. We don't upload personally identified information. That doesn't mean I don't throw somebody's resume into it. I just start copying and pasting after their name. If it's public, then I don't care. Your job ad, if it's going to be public, after I get done writing it, I don't care, right? But if it's your secret sauce, I probably don't load it. That doesn't mean it's like instantly all my competitors are gonna be notified that I uploaded something. But what is not allowed? I don't send stuff out to 1 million people without having proofread what came out of it. That's crazy. Think about this. This is the same way I train a new assistant, right? Dear whatever. These things are not allowed. These things I desire you to do. I don't want you asking me questions about how to open the mail, because the risk is pretty low. I do want you asking questions before you hit send to 1 million people. Really simple stuff. Here's what's required if we're going to think about doing something. The problem is it leaves out why would we be using it, how would we be using it, who gets to use it, what do we do next, etc. And so this is where you need just a kind of a framework, and then we're going to do this iteration. Let's go try it. Find something that's a priority. We call this at Applicant Pro, we call it a nastiness score. How nasty is this, right? So you're like, do we think it's actually going to work? Yeah, I'm pretty confident about it. If it doesn't work, how bad is it going to be fixed? Or who will know about it is a really good one. If you screw this up, who's going to know about it before you can fix it? If the answer is like, well, all the clients will know about it before I can fix it, and there's pretty much no going back, that's a high nasty score. That doesn't mean we don't do it. It just means we're going to slow down. We're going to put in these checkpoints. We're like, all right, you're ready to hit send. Did you have somebody else read it? All right, they read it too. Great, now you can hit send. And so this looping, I'm probably on Chat GPT. Well, number one, I started with no policy because I left Applicant Pro. 12 months ago, I left Applicant Pro, and I basically took, I don't know, probably 3,000 hours now of me going, imagine I was an HR person. What would I do with Chat GPT? Imagine I was a job seeker. What would I do with ChatGPT? Imagine I was, Tracy back at Applicant Pro, who's a sales rep. What would I do with ChatGPT? So my policy is pretty much like, I don't have a policy because I don't have all those employees anymore. I can do anything I want. I can wear a shirt like this and not worry about getting sued, right? But I instead am more focused on prioritization. Is this worth wasting my time on? If yes, I'm going to try something and implement it and see if it works. Because I don't know if it works until I try it. Let's go write a job ad and see what it comes back with. If it comes back with crap, I'm going to blame myself, not ChatGPT. In almost every situation, I'm going to be like, think about ChatGPT like it's a spreadsheet. Who in here loves spreadsheets? If you open up Excel and you're like, well, that didn't work. Look, it isn't summing up. Or you're like, Excel's broken. Quit using Excel because this number isn't right. No, you look at it, you're like, I'm an idiot. I probably made the wrong formula. When you think about ChatGPT, if it comes back with the wrong answer, just point the finger at yourself and say, how did I make it do this? Right? And so with this looping, we tried it, it worked, let's do it some more. Now let's try something else. What's our next priority? Let's try it. So you don't want to try everything. In the same way that you don't show up at work and say, we should throw out all of our processes and start from scratch on everything. You don't do that. You pick the thing that will have the most impact for the least amount of effort. 80-20 rule says that 80% of the output will come from 20% of activities. So when we think about ChatGPT or AI or whatever the case may be, 80% of the value we're going to get is going to come from 20% of its use. Our job is to figure out what is in that 20% and not have us or our team waste their time on the 80%. Not because the 80% might honestly, yes, it could get you sued. Yes, it could do all those things. But to be honest, the more likely outcome is you waste a bunch of time and money doing something stupid. You're just like, you're right, it can automate that. I'm so glad that you've now meal prepped using ChatGPT forever, but that doesn't solve our business problem. So here's the way that I like to think about this. Is probably the easiest thinking side of ChatGPT. Number one, how private or secret or proprietary is the information we're feeding it? We want stuff that's green. My goal is low-hanging fruit. You're walking up right now to the ChatGPT can fix all of our processes or work tree. Don't climb to the top of the tree and start picking up there. There's a bunch of food. It's just sitting on the ground. You can just pick it up, right? So we want the green to start. And this seems cheesy, but if you show it to your team, they'll be like, so is this a red thing? Then why are we talking about it right now? Just put a pin in it. We'll come back to it. Start with the stuff where we're not uploading our top secret proprietary information into AI. Not because I'm actually afraid of doing that. I just don't know why you want to talk to lawyers about it right now. Instead of starting with something easy, like our marketing content. Our marketing content, our job ad content, the screening questions that we use to interview people, like that kind of stuff is green. I can load up somebody's resume without putting their name and email in there. More importantly, their name and email is probably everywhere on the internet already. Right? So we want something green on that left side. Over here on the right side, how important is the accuracy and how wide will it spread? If it's a red, then we should slow down and make sure we double checked it before we sent it. But there's so much green stuff for us to do at work that we actually shouldn't be wasting our time on green-red stuff. Like, you're just not there yet. Let's pick the easy stuff where approval isn't that high, where we're not worried about what it will do. I'll show you some of that stuff, but if you think about the employee journey, from recruiting, from screening, from job questions, onboarding, he's gonna talk about culture, how you disseminate that information to your team to teach them about culture. Who in here sends a drip email out every day for the first 90 days somebody's working? To teach them about your culture and where the coffee pot is and who pays for the food and the snacks. Anybody? What your values are? One person. Why don't we do that? Well, it would take a lot of content. You'd have to type up a lot of stuff. Nobody's got time for that. If you have literally anything where you're like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but that would require a lot of content, a lot of stuff for me to create, dude, ChatGPT is your answer all day long. I'll show you how to do that in a second here. But you think about this entire journey, why don't we send out personalized rejection emails? It's a lot of work. Who's got time for that? Right? Why don't our rejection emails or our follow-up emails sound more personalized? Well, I don't have time to type up an email for every single applicant. I don't have time to create. If you want to get more applicants right now, the answer is better ads and variation of those ads. Who's got time to create all that content? Right? That's literally where you get to, is who's got time for that. So I'm going to show you, so we're going to start so that I can show some stuff in here and make sure that it relates. So here's my question. What do you do where you type more than 20 words in a row? It could be like, I respond to my boss's email, I wanted to say, no, but instead I need to type up this. Well, that's a very interesting point you brought up, but I think that it may not be the smartest thing for us to do, right? That's me all day long. Like, oh, hi, I hope you're having a great day today. How's the family? Blah, 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 blah. Instead of just, yo, will you go and look at this real quick and let me know? Thanks. So email. We respond to emails. We write emails. We send newsletters out to our team. We respond to employees' requests. Sheesh, how can I nicely say no? It's probably like the number one thing you'll find in ChatGPT. Respond to this email in a nice way, right? Let's see, job postings, analysis, pitching ideas via email. That's a great one. Hey, I've got this great idea, and I'm going to pitch it to my boss, and I want us to do it, but I don't know how to pitch it, or I don't know how to pitch it in his or her terminology, or where they're coming from. Let's see, birthday and anniversary, web content, memos, explain how things work. I love that one, right? So this is all the stuff you could use ChatGPT for. Going back to our thing of how nasty is the information going in, pretty low. How nasty is the information coming out? Well, a lot of those emails are one-to-one, or they're one to our employee base. Probably could just proof it, make sure it's not saying something wrong. Social posts, benefits enrollment, announcements, resume writing, all this kind of real estate listings. That's interesting. Did you type that, Sarah? I caught you on that one. None of these HR people are writing real estate listings. So I'm going to walk you through ChatGPT. The key, as I jump into it, is keep this one thing in mind. Most of the world says you need to become a prompt engineer. Like, you need to write this perfect prompt to get the content back. That's just not true. Instead, think about it like it's a person, like you just hired a consultant for 20 bucks a month. Walk the flow. Hey, I want you to be my recruitment marketing consultant. The information that I want you to use is best practices in recruitment marketing. Ask it, what do you need to know about my company to make this content great? It's going to tell you, I need to know this, and this. What do you want it to do? I now want you to write a job ad. What do you want to change? Meaning when it comes back, you're not like, well, that sucked, I guess I'll give up. You say, no, I don't like it that way. I want you to do something different. So I'm actually going to jump into Chat GPT. And actually, I'll show you what I did yesterday. This was yesterday. Sarah read this post that I did on Facebook and wanted to know when I did it. This was yesterday while I was waiting to board the plane. Somebody posted this post on social media. The value of HR function in business is no longer your knowledge of FLSA laws and knowing the difference between deductible and copay. HR needs to know how to interpret the knowledge of HR principles and apply them to business. For instance, recommendation. Here's all these things that you need to learn. And she got a bunch of thumbs up and everybody loves it. Oh my gosh, we're going to become more strategic. Now we just need to learn this stuff. I instead took this entire post and just posted it into Chat GPT. Said, here's something was posted online, and Chat GPT returned. I gotta make this a little smaller so we can all see it. I have a few extensions on here, and I'm just going to turn them off. But I have some videos that you can look at so you can see how they work. We don't want to upload files, we don't want to search the internet. Here we go. So it came back, sure, I can provide all of these different types of things. Great, so here's what I told it. Can you create for me a series of ChatGPT prompts that I can use that include variables for my specific issue, challenge, whatever, so that we can collaborate? Tell me how to use you. It's smart, right? It should be smarter than literally anybody on TikTok about how to use ChatGPT. It's that smart. Tell me what you can do. If I walked into your business right now as a consultant and I said, what do you want me to do? Most likely you would turn back to me and be like, I don't know, Ryan, you're the expert. What can you do? Like, why would you make me figure this out? So it came back and said, well, I can help you refine knowledge. I can help you with skills development, with networking tools. So I then said, can you create a list of prompts that I could use that include variables about my specific situation? So here's one. I'm grappling with the issue of, put in the issue, what are some common strategies to address it? Super easy prompt. You plug in your issue there, it's going to spit back something. Now here's the challenge at this point. ChatGPT knows everything about everything, but nothing about you. So if I was to take and say, I'm grappling with the issue of not getting enough applicants for my jobs. And yeah, it makes up for my lack of spelling, so that's. What can you do? Well, I could do a whole bunch of this stuff. What I haven't told it is that I work for a tech company with 30 employees. What I didn't tell it was specifically I have a problem finding salespeople. I'm letting it assume and fill in the blanks. How good do you think it's going to be at reading my freaking mind? Probably not very good. Now, Elon's coming up with this Neuralink thing that can plug into your brain, and I will so do that. I would wake up in the morning with 1,000 blog posts written on all kinds of topics, but it comes back and says, well, there's all this information. I can do all kinds of things. So instead, I might want to say, what would you need to know to personalize this to my specific business? What do you need to know to make it better? Well, I would need to know the nature of business, the size of your company, the location. I would need to know, what do you do right now for job postings? I would need to, do you see this one hack right here? Tell me what you need to know, and I'll give it to you. Now at this point, I wouldn't type this up. This is where I would fire up Otter, and I'd hit record, and I would literally speak this into existence. I'd just transcribe my voice. Or if I had a manager, I might say, my manager, my sales manager is complaining about not getting good applicants. Write some interview questions that I can ask about what he's looking for. Give me a list of questions. Most problems can be summed up not by finding the answer, but by finding the right question to ask. So in this instance, I can now sit down with my manager, pull up my phone, fire up Otter, drop it in the middle of the table, and be like, I'm going to interview you. I want to know what you mean by this. So what specific skills or qualifications are essential for a sales position that we're hiring for? Tell me. Say it out loud. This will transcribe it. I would also go interview my employees. Hey, you're a salesperson here. I know your manager made this huge list, but when you started here, what skills were required, and what stuff did you learn in the first 90 days, 6 months, 12 months? Where did you come from? Why did you hate that job? Why were you looking for a new job? Why was coming to work for us a better thing than what you were doing? I spent a significant amount of time just interviewing people. Just in audio, 15 minutes of content. You know what's so great about interviewing somebody versus typing it up? I hear their vocabulary in their voice. More importantly, I feed Chat GPT their vocabulary in their voice. I actually spend way less time interviewing a manager than the actual person. My question to a manager is, who do you want to clone? Of the 10 people you got here, who are the 2 that you wish you could just hire all day long? Now, why do you like them so much? Cool, I'm going to go talk to them. Because a manager's vocabulary is not the same as that employee's. And the person I'm trying to clone has a way that they think and talk. I'm going to go talk to them. If I said that and I said, I got him to give me somebody that he loves, write a list of interview questions to ask them about where they came from, why they were looking for a job, what interested them about us, why they love working for us. It's going to give me back a list of interview questions. This is me interviewing my existing employees. Do you know how many times I've done this? A ton. It's actually like, you want to know the hack as a boss to validate an employee? Say, hey, I want to clone you. I want to learn about why you love this job and what makes you so great at it so I can hire people like you. I get major brownie points for that one. It's right up there with like paying for house cleaning, which I do. But that house cleaning is an easy hack. It costs way more than doing an interview because I think it's not my bill anymore, it's iSolve's bill, but it's like $350 grand a year is the bill for house cleaning. Do you know how I knew to pay for house cleaning? I just interviewed my employees. Like, what do you do when you go home at night? What do you hate? What sucks about going home after working all day? What things do you struggle with at home besides what you're doing here at work? But when I feed this stuff into ChatGPT, it's now going to write me an insanely engaging ad. Not one that the manager will like, not one that looks like our competitors, but one that when that person I want to clone reads, they're like, holy crap, it's like he's listening into my thoughts. How does he know I'm sick of my current job and I'm looking for this other thing?
Wonderful. Ready for some questions?
Questions? Oh yeah, all day.
All right. Wonderful.
I mean, I'm just going to feed him to ChatGPT and let him answer it, but
I really like this question here because I want to add something to it when you're done. What is your thoughts on how AI will impact your creativeness?
It's like having 5 versions of me going back and forth at the same time.
That's exhausting. All right.
No, literally, like, and if you look
One
at
of them
the
is
other
enough.
hand and say, my boss is really creative, but I'm not, I wish that I could talk to him the right way. Go steal a transcript from YouTube or from his Zoom thing and feed it in there and say, this is my boss's resume. This is what he talks about. Here's the 5 books he's talking about all the time. Will you act as my sounding board like you're my boss so I can talk to you first before I talk to them? But I actually think it's, again, it depends on how you would use AI. I use AI as an extension of myself. So like, hey, let's brainstorm a new way to help job seekers with X, Y, and Z. And me and AI will sit there like 3 in the morning. Sarah will wake up and be like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, it's fine. Me and ChatGPT, we're deep in this discussion. I think I have one that's like, how does Russia and China in the current situation mimic World War II and the entrance of Japan into war? I can literally predict stuff because me and ChatGPT have spent a long time with it.
So do you ask him, Sarah, is it khakis, the State Farm, I'm wearing khakis when you
She's even worse. She's like,
She sounds hideous.
All right, but when you talk about creativeness, and really, Brian, you're the one that introduced me to Chat GPT about a year ago. That backdrop we created with Chat GPT, right? We can go to a marketing firm, we can do things. We sat around, we did some brainstorming with Chat GPT, and we came up with that particular message as an example. So I have found it really helped in the space of creativeness because it takes us outside of our box and gives us additional things to consider. Another question here is from an HR leader perspective, where do you see AI and Chat GPT in 5 years?
So most AI, if you look at kind of a legal law update, most laws have to do with AI making hiring decisions, like it deciding who to hire and does it have bias and is it going to create discrimination, all that stuff, which is super laughable because you think that humans are doing it great. Like we suck at it. We're just littered with bias, right? AI, the challenge with say AI is a good example, and the same challenge you have with a job ad. If I was to come in here and say write a receptionist job ad, implied in this is that it knows what I mean by job ad. Since the world of HR, clearly not you guys, have spent the last 2 decades writing boring job ads. You train ChatGPT to think job ad equals boring. Do you know how hard it's been for me to retrain ChatGPT's model so that it believes that a job ad is not boring? And so if you think about it from that aspect, it's based on our current content model. So if you're in HR and you're saying, hey, I want it to do something that, and I use the term HR, it's going to use best practice, like what it's consumed. If that best practice is not the future, then you have a problem. And so you have to tell it, what would you do if you wanted to do the opposite of that? If you were in HR but you want to act like a marketer, how would a marketer approach HR? How would a marketer approach writing a job ad? And it's as simple as write this job ad as a marketer. How would Steve Jobs write this job ad? And you're suddenly going to see that it just changed into it being much more about the job seeker reading it and much less about a job description. Something as simple as that part. So where does it go in the next 5 years? I would assume you'll end up on the left-hand side of ChatGPT having a bunch of stuff that you go back to go back to my sales or my marketing or my support kind of ads. Or if it was me, I would have one of these things for each of my managers that I loaded in, like what their goals are and what they're working on and where they come from and their resume and what things they talk about. So I could go back and be like, hey Joe, if I said X, how are you going to respond? How could I write an email to you that would pitch what I want to do in your terminology, in your frame of mind, in your frame of context? Hey, here's a spreadsheet. Tell me how I can present this. And so that, if you don't use ChatGPT though, and HR stays completely out of it and you leave it up to the tech companies, then you're having them make the assumptions of how you want it to act. So Applicant Pro is going to build ChatGPT in to write a better job ad, and they're going to make assumptions about how you would want it to work. And so you're therefore leaving it up to the product manager to decide what it should do. Applicant Pro is going to do great, but if you left that in the mind of, an old school tech company in payroll or benefits that was started before the iPhone came out, they're most likely going to program it to do stuff that replicates. I guess the way I would say is, we think the customer's always right. And so if you guys aren't asking for certain things, they don't build it. I don't think the customer's always right. When it comes to innovation, most likely I'm going to have to pull you along. So I'm going to come up with something funky and force you guys to comply. And so that's what will happen if you don't engage though, is somebody else will decide how it should work.
Great. This is a follow-up. Melanie asked the first question, which I'll remind you was, what are your thoughts on how AI will impact creatives? And her question was, she meant your creative people, your writers, your graphic artists. I don't
So if you think about ChatGPT, we usually start with efficiency. This will make it faster for me to do this job, and then I'll have nothing to do, right? Your creatives like artists, we honestly don't employ that many pure creatives. Has anybody ever hired an artist? Like you have somebody who believes that they're an artist, like they wake up in the morning to literally create from nothing. It's really expensive. They get very little done. If you try to actually grade them or rate them on efficiency or anything, they quit. You're gonna destroy the creative process. So those people who feel that way, musicians and artists and movie people and all that kind of stuff, they tend to not be our employees. I'm not a creative like that. I'm an innovator. Innovation is different than creative. Creative is, I started from nothing and invented something brand new. Innovators are like, I took what was existing, added in this stuff, and created a new way to approach it. That stuff is way faster and way better. But what I think you get to is, when you get beyond efficiency, you start getting into something more engaging. So for instance, my 15-year-old wants to learn how to trade stocks. If I want to teach something really difficult to somebody who has no context about it whatsoever, I can bore them to tears, or I can figure out their starting point and phrase it using an analogy. So ChatGPT is sitting right here, has a learning the basics of day trading as if it's a game, like a video game. And it literally is teaching him trend analysis and all that kind of stuff based off of concepts as a game. The idea of being able to teach an employee something, but finding 5 ways to teach it to them and meeting them where their starting point is. Hey, I want to learn about sales and marketing as a gamer versus as a musician versus from the frame of, like, I have entire threads where I'm teaching complicated business topics based off of anime, because my kids are big anime fans. And so it gives this way to connect the learning together. I can now create 5 variations of it really fast, so I'm not like, you just gotta learn it that way. And that, if you think about learning as a good example, the ability to create 10 variations of a topic based off of the frame of reference of the reader, of meeting them where they're at, that has amazing abilities that we wouldn't spend the time doing if we were writing them from scratch.
Following our discussion last night at dinner, I went back to the room and I typed in, help Phil Brandt learn the concepts of day trading. I said, don't do it. All right. Ryan, thank you very much. Appreciate it. As always, fantastic insight.